Diddy is in even deeper trouble this week, and everything is unraveling fast. We're talking about a $100 million lawsuit, Tupac's name coming back from the past to haunt him, and prison drama that somehow keeps getting worse with every headline. This week was so wild that I'm ranking every single update on a tier list, from "we saw this coming" all the way up to "there is no way anybody predicted this." And some of these are absolutely insane. Let's get into it. Welcome back to Bad Boy Weekly, Episode 4. If you're new here, this is where we break down everything that happened with Diddy over the past week. Every court filing, every leak, every rumor that actually matters. Then rank it from D tier to S tier so you can see what's noise and what's a real earthquake. This week, it was an earthquake. Quick tier list breakdown. Before we dive in here, S how the tier list works. S tier, shocking, game-changing, and completely unexpected. Stuff that flips the whole story. A tier, wild but believable. Serious developments that raise the stakes. B tier, interesting and important, but we could kind of see it coming. D tier, old news, minor updates, or things that fit Diddy's pattern so well they barely move the needle. Quick background, where Diddy stands right now. Diddy is currently locked up in a New Jersey jail, and he's been there for months. He's facing serious federal charges, including racketeering-related accusations. On top of that, multiple civil lawsuits are stacking up quickly, each one adding more pressure and more public scrutiny. His criminal trial is expected later this year, and the clock is ticking. Normally, when celebrities get locked up, they go quiet. The lawyers step in, the PR team disappears, and the star goes into survival mode. Diddy is doing the opposite. Even from inside, he's filing lawsuits of his own, releasing statements, trying to control the narrative and fight back publicly. And this past week, it turned into absolute chaos. The $100 million NBC lawsuit, B tier. First up, Diddy has just filed a massive $100 million lawsuit against NBC. Even for someone with his money and history, that is a serious move. He's suing NBCUniversal, Peacock, Ample Entertainment, over their documentary titled Diddy, The Making of a Bad Boy. According to Diddy, the documentary is nothing more than a shameful hit piece, a project he claims is packed with false, unproven allegations and sensationalized storytelling. His side says the producers allegedly rushed the documentary. They were desperate to beat Netflix and other platforms to market. They leaned into conspiracy and rumor instead of facts, especially after 50 Cent's documentary about Diddy reportedly pulled in big viewership numbers. The sworn affidavit, Diddy goes on record. Here, S where it gets heavy. Diddy submitted a sworn affidavit as part of this lawsuit. That means he's making these statements under penalty of perjury. If he lies in this document, there can be serious legal consequences for him down the line. In that affidavit, Diddy flat out denies any involvement in the death of Kim Porter, the mother of several of his children. Denies any role in the murder of Christopher Wallace, better known as the Notorious B.I.G. Denies having anything to do with the deaths of Andre Harrell and Heavy D. He doesn't stop there. He also denies hosting so-called freak-off parties in the way they've been described, using recordings to blackmail anyone, any and all allegations involving minors. These are huge denials, and he's putting them all in writing. Why NBC? Diddy's legal team claims the documentary leaned heavily on just 3 sources. Jaguar Wright, Gene Deal, a former associate, and one anonymous individual. They argue that's not nearly enough verification for accusations this explosive. They also point out how Kim Porter's official cause of death, pneumonia, was barely mentioned, while conspiracy theories about her death were heavily emphasized on screen. According to his team, that kind of selective storytelling is misleading and unfair, and it's part of why they're going after NBC for defamation and damages. Tier ranking: B tier. So where does this land? I'm putting this in B tier. Why? It's bold. The sworn affidavit is serious. But we all knew Diddy wasn't going to sit there quietly and just take it. A massive lawsuit, aggressive legal counterattack from someone who's been powerful and litigious his entire career. Interesting, yes. Strategic, yes. But not shocking. The SDEVOTIS lawsuit and the TUPAC threat, a tier. Now let's move into one of the darkest updates yet. A man named Steve Otis has filed a civil lawsuit against Diddy, and inside that filing is one of the most disturbing quotes we've seen so far in this entire saga. According to Otis, during an encounter in 2012 at a Midtown Manhattan hotel, Diddy allegedly threatened him and said, "If I can get Pac hit, what do you think can happen to you?" Let that sit or a second. Otis is claiming, in a legal filing, that Diddy directly referenced Tupac Shakur's murder as a threat, implying the kind of reach and power he has. Lawyers are calling that an implied admission of power and capability, even if not an outright confession. Otis says he stayed silent for more than a decade because he genuinely feared for his life. He only felt safe enough to come forward after Diddy was taken into federal custody. That detail alone shook a lot of people. What Otis alleges happened that night. According to the lawsuit, Otis says he met Diddy at a hotel suite. Diddy gave him a water bottle. After drinking it, Otis claims he quickly became disoriented, foggy, and unable to resist. He describes feeling like his body wasn't fully under his control, being forced into humiliating acts while Diddy watched, trying to escape to the bathroom, only for Diddy to allegedly follow him and assault him, despite him repeatedly saying no. The complaint says this incident caused long-term physical pain, ongoing psychological trauma, years of fear and hypervigilance. And the fear didn't stop with that night. The threats that allegedly followed. In 2014, Otis says he left a comment on Diddy's Instagram, something small but enough to be noticed. Soon after, he claims, he began receiving threats through the escort agency that first connected them, Cowboys for Angels. The agency's owner allegedly warned him about someone known as Mr. Star, described as one of Diddy's aliases. He was allegedly told to stop speaking out, or there would be consequences. Another escort later told Otis that Diddy was furious. Diddy had allegedly threatened to kill him. That, Otis says, is what kept him silent all these years. Tier ranking, a tier. We've heard theories and rumors for decades about Diddy and what may or may not have happened around Tupac. But this is the first time someone has put an alleged quote like that directly into a sworn lawsuit. This isn't an internet thread. This isn't a podcast rumor. This is court material. If this case goes to trial, Otis will have to take the stand, repeat that story under oath, face cross-examination on every word. That alone makes this a tier update. It's believable within the larger picture. It's disturbing on every level, and it has the potential to dramatically escalate how the public and the courts view Diddy's alleged behavior and history. The Cowboys for Angels system, B tier. The deeper you go into Steve Otis' lawsuit, the more it stops looking like a one-time horror story and starts looking like a pattern. The escort agency at the center of his account is Cowboys for Angels. The head of that agency was a man named Brett Taylor, also known as Garon James, According to the lawsuit, he allegedly set the tone before Otis even walked into Diddy's hotel suite. Otis claims Guerin told him to do whatever Diddy wanted, to stay quiet, and to remember who held the power in that situation. Before Otis had even met Diddy that night, he was allegedly being prepped to be compliant, not equal. Huge red flag. The night in the hotel. When Otis arrived at the hotel suite, things allegedly went downhill fast. The lawsuit brings up that same water bottle again. After drinking from it, Otis says he felt dizzy, became foggy and detached, felt like his body didn't fully belong to him anymore. He knew something was wrong, he claims, but couldn't react in time. Then comes a detail that's shown up in other allegations and is now almost a grim pattern in itself. Baby oil. According to the complaint, Diddy allegedly covered Otis in baby oil. And in that moment, Otis says he realized he was in serious danger, but he felt chemically trapped, unable to fight back or even process what was happening. The lawsuit uses a particularly disturbing phrase to describe what followed, calling it a reclamation ritual. Otis alleges he was forced into an intimate act with a woman. Diddy watched the entire time, in full control of the room. Afterward, Diddy still needed to assert control over both of them. That's when Otis tried to escape to the bathroom. The lawsuit says Diddy followed him, told him, "Let's turn up," grabbed him, pinned him against the wall, and assaulted him as Otis repeatedly said no. Otis claims the incident lasted several minutes, leaving him in pain, terrified, and traumatized. Afterward, he says Diddy made the Tupac-related threat, the "if I can get Pac hit" line, and then sent him on his way. Otis left believing he had no power, no safety, and that speaking out could get him killed. A disturbing pipeline. What makes this Cowboys for Angels situation even darker is that, according to the lawsuit, it wasn't some random, one-off arrangement. Otis' filing suggests Guerin James and Diddy allegedly had an ongoing working relationship. Men were prepared ahead of time for Diddy. Diddy's money and power were used as leverage. The agency's access to people fed directly into this alleged system. That's not coincidence. That looks like a pipeline. And here's the part that makes people's skin crawl. Cowboys for Angels is still operating. Right now, their website is active, offering escorts in New York, Miami, Los Angeles, Houston, Atlanta. This wasn't some shady pop-up operation that vanished. It's a full, ongoing business. Otis' lawsuit paints the picture of a disturbing partnership. Diddy allegedly brought influence, celebrity, and a sense of untouchability. The agency brought a steady flow of people, with pressure to obey. Together, the complaint suggests, they created a dark pipeline of exploitation. Tier ranking: B tier. So why is this B tier and not higher? Because as horrifying as it is, the pattern it describes is no longer shocking to people following this story. We've heard similar allegations, similar methods, the same themes of control, silence, drugs, and ritualized behavior. It's deeply disturbing, but it fits with what's already been coming out. The pattern is expanding, not breaking. The JUSTINBIEBER blind item, a tier. The next update hits on something that makes a lot of people extremely uncomfortable: minors in Diddy's orbit. A blind item surfaced involving Justin Bieber and his early years around Diddy. Now let's be clear. Blind items are not confirmed facts. They're anonymous, often unverified stories. Hollywood rumor with just enough detail to make people guess who it's about. So take this with caution. But the implications are serious enough that people aren't ignoring it. What the blind item suggests: The blind item shared by a TikTok user referenced freaky times involving Justin during his early career. The thing that matters most here: Justin Bieber was a minor at that time. We've all seen the old footage. A very young Justin, still a teenager, hanging around Diddy. Diddy joking on camera about wanting to spend 48 hours with him. Clips that back then, people mostly brushed off as mentorship, industry bonding, or Big Brother energy. But now, with all the new allegations about Diddy's private parties and lifestyle, those old videos feel very different. The blind item doesn't go into graphic detail. It doesn't give a blow by blow, but it heavily implies inappropriate behavior in that environment. And that alone is alarming. Why this matters so much? Anything involving a child instantly jumps the scale. Minors cannot consent, period. There is no gray area there. If even a piece of this rumor were ever validated, it would move into the category of the most serious allegations possible. Over the years, Justin himself has spoken about struggling with his mental health, feeling used and commodified by the industry, dealing with addiction, anxiety, and deep burnout. No one is saying those things are directly connected to Diddy or this blind item, but when you line up his age, the timeline, and the footage we have, people are understandably uneasy. What also stands out is Justin's silence. He hasn't defended Diddy. He hasn't condemned him either. He's just quiet. And in a story like this, that silence makes people read between the lines. I genuinely hope this blind item is false. But in the current context, people are asking questions, and that in itself is terrifying. Tier ranking, a tier. Because this involves a potential minor and hints at something far beyond what we've already heard, this one goes straight into a tier. Rumor or not, the implications are too serious to ignore. The secret dress code at the parties, B tier. Next, we have a woman who came forward on TikTok with a story that chilled a lot of people, and at the same time, answered a question many have had. How were these parties actually organized? She claims there was a secret dress code at Diddy's parties, something nobody was supposed to talk about out loud. According to her, she was told to wear a black dress. Almost everyone else at the party was dressed in white. At first, she didn't understand why. It just looked like a fashion choice, a high-end aesthetic theme. Later, she says, it became very clear what it meant, what the black dress signaled. According to her account, the black dress was a signal. It told certain party guests exactly who to approach if they were looking for extras. Her word, not mine. And extras didn't mean VIP passes, better seats, free drinks. It meant sexual access. She says that once she realized that, it was already too late. She describes suddenly feeling numb and disoriented, like something had hit her. Feeling loopy, detached, almost zombie-like. Being unable to think clearly or properly react, as people began crossing boundaries. She recalls moving through the room while guests touched her, flirted aggressively, and treated her as if she was there specifically for their use, all because the dress had silently marked her as available. A coded system behind the glamour. Her story suggests something bigger. These parties weren't random chaos. They were structured. She claims certain people were hand-picked ahead of time. They were dressed differently on purpose. They were placed into situations where they were more vulnerable and accessible. On the surface, everything looked classy, luxurious, like a typical celebrity event, everyone in white, upscale vibes, champagne, music. But underneath that, she describes a coded system. If you knew what to look for, if you understood the signal, you knew exactly who you could approach for more than partying. That also explains why so many people have said the parties started off normal, then slowly shifted into something much darker as the night went on. The transition, according to stories like hers, wasn't accidental. It was planned. Tier ranking B tier. I'm putting this in B tier. The details, the black dress, the zombified feeling, the coded access, are intense and unsettling. But the idea that there was an organized system behind these parties. At this point, that part isn't surprising anymore. We already knew there were rules, signals, a hierarchy of access and power at these events. Now we're just learning exactly how some of it allegedly worked. The EPSTIN/WEXNER/DIDDY connection theory, a tier. Now we're going even deeper. There's a theory gaining traction online about the overlap between Diddy's circle and Jeffrey Epstein's network. And while a lot of it is still speculative, the patterns people are pointing out are hard to ignore. You've got two wealthy, powerful men with New York connections, moving in elite spaces, attending the same kinds of events, dealing with young, vulnerable people, according to accusations. People are asking, do you really think their worlds never crossed? The pattern people are seeing. After Diddy was arrested, other high-profile men started popping up in headlines, according to the narrative that's forming online. Mike Jeffries, the former CEO of Abercrombie & Fitch, faced serious legal trouble. Eric Adams, the mayor of New York City, was indicted on separate charges. The timing of these big names all being hit with cases caused people to raise their eyebrows. Is it all coincidence? Maybe, but a lot of people don't think so. Let's talk about the Wexner/Epstein/Jeffries angle for a second. Les Wexner was the billionaire behind L Brands, Victoria's Secret, etc. Jeffrey Epstein managed Wexner's money for years. He wasn't just around, he was deeply embedded. Wexner gave Epstein unusual control over his financial world and personal properties. Now Ed. Wexner backed Mike Jeffries. Jeffries later faced allegations related to exploitation and misconduct. According to reports, at one point he and Diddy were even held in the same jail facility, before Jeffries was declared unfit for trial due to health issues. Again, from the outside looking in, people see powerful men, similar accusations of exploiting vulnerable people, interlocking financial and social networks. And it starts to look less like random individuals and more like an ecosystem. Is Diddy cooperating? Because of that pattern, some people believe Diddy might be cooperating quietly behind the scenes, or that powerful people are working urgently to shut things down before more names surface. We don't know if either theory is true. But what we do know is there is a visible, documented history of powerful men, Epstein, Wexner, Jeffries, involved in systems that enabled abuse. Now Diddy's name is circling in some of the same conversations. It paints a picture of wealth, influence, and alleged abuse of power operating on a systemic level, not just as a string of isolated scandals. Tier ranking, a tier. Because this moves the story from one celebrity's downfall into, this might be part of a larger power structure. This lands in a tier. It doesn't look like just one bad actor. It looks like a network. The KARDSHINS connection, a tier. Now let's talk about a family nobody expected to be this closely tied in. The Kardashians. A deep dive into old footage, stuff that was buried, not just trending on your feed, pulled up video after video of the Kardashians around Diddy over the years. We're talking Kim, Kyle, Kourtney, Kris Jenner, all appearing at Diddy's events repeatedly. These weren't just casual, we bumped into each other one time at a party moments. The footage suggests there were social ties. There were business connections. There was consistent access to his world, his events, and his circle. Now that we know what has allegedly taken place at some of these parties, people are asking tough questions. What did they see? What did they know? Did they ever sense something was wrong? Were they out before things turned dark, or did they stay deeper into the night? The silence is loud. What makes this even more interesting is their silence. The Kardashians haven't defended Diddy, haven't publicly condemned him, haven't provided statements distancing themselves from him. For a family that lives on public narrative, controls their image harder than almost anyone, responds to almost everything that touches their brand, their quietness here is loud. Some people think they might have seen more than they're comfortable admitting, or that they're carefully waiting it out, not wanting to say anything that can be used later. Others believe they probably left early and steered clear of the worst of it. We don't know the answer, but the resurfaced footage shows that their connection to Diddy was much closer and more consistent than most people realized. Tier ranking, a tier. This one earns a tier because the footage is real, these appearances happened. Their ongoing silence feels deliberate, not accidental. It doesn't prove guilt or knowledge, but it absolutely raises new questions about just how wide Diddy's circle of influence really was. DIDDYBRAKS Prison Rules D tier. Now for a quicker one. Diddy has already managed to break prison rules. While in jail, he made a three-way call involving his lawyer, a PR representative. The purpose of that call? To draft a media statement, essentially to work on controlling the public narrative from behind bars. Problem is, that kind of three-way communication is against prison rules. As punishment, his release date reportedly got pushed back by about a month. He lost phone privileges and commissary privileges for 90 days. Tier ranking, D tier. This is straight D tier. Why? Because this is exactly what you'd expect from Diddy at this point. Of course he's trying to manage PR from behind bars, pushing the limits of whatever access he has, testing the rules. It's a violation. It has consequences, but in the big picture, it barely moves the needle. It just confirms what we already knew about his need to control the story. Documentary warfare, DIDDYVs, 50 Cent S tier. Now for the final update, and this one is pure, uncut S tier chaos. We have officially entered documentary warfare. Diddy's sons, Justin and Christian Combs, are now producing a documentary defending their father. On its own, that isn't shocking. If your dad is being torn apart in the media and facing life-changing accusations, a documentary defending him is almost expected. But here's the twist. They're not just making a doc about Diddy. They're also producing a documentary about 50 Cent. Yes, you heard that right. 50 Cent dropped a documentary about Diddy, digging into the allegations and history. Now Diddy's sons are firing back with their own project focused on 50. This isn't just legal drama anymore. This is media versus media. Documentary versus documentary. Rap beef with streaming budgets. It's the next level of public warfare. Lawsuits happening in court. Allegations happening in filings. And now, competing documentaries battling for control of public opinion. Nobody saw this coming in exactly this way. We expected court motions, press statements, leaked footage maybe. But your dad made a doc about mine, so now I'm making one about you. That is a whole new kind of petty, strategic and theatrical all at once. Tier ranking, S tier. For sheer unpredictability, for what it says about how this saga has moved from the courtroom to the content platforms. This is S tier. It's not just a legal fight anymore. It's a full-blown narrative war. That's everything. Those are all the major Diddy updates from this week. From the $100 million lawsuit, to the Tupac-linked threat, to the dress code allegations, to the Kardashians' silent proximity, to documentary warfare, ranked. Now I want to hear from you. Which update shook you the most? Do you agree with the S, A, B, and D tier rankings? Is there anything you think should have been ranked higher or lower? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because if the last few weeks are any indication, next week is shaping up to be even crazier.